didn't come to that Manhattan penthouse looking for anything but a quiet place to grade papers and forget the world. The marble floors echoed under my steps like they knew I didn't belong, cold and vast against the city lights sprawling below. I'm a teacher, scraping by on lesson plans and small-town memories, but her ad promised space, and somehow I ended up sharing it with Olivia, the billionaire whose quiet intensity pulled at me like a current I couldn't name. That pull scared me. I'd left my ex-fiancé back in the conservative hollows of my hometown, his safe world of picket fences and Sunday suppers still whispering in my ear. But living here, with her, stirred something deeper, something I wasn't ready to chase. Then she caught me, letter from him trembling in my hands, his words begging me back to that steady life. Her silence hit like thunder in the quiet room, eyes locking on mine, thickening the air until I couldn't breathe. That gaze held me there, forcing every unspoken fear to the surface. The fear of that gaze was so profound that we both instinctively pulled back, seeking refuge in the familiar. The routine became our only anchor, a quiet rhythm that carried us through the days like the steady cadence of seasons turning in the rural stretches I'd known back home. Winter's long silences giving way to spring's tentative warmth, even when doubts lingered beneath the surface, like frost hidden under thawing soil. Those anchors held us, fragile but persistent, as we navigated the unspoken weight that had settled between us. Our mornings started the same way, every day for months. She'd brew coffee in that sleek kitchen, the steam rising like fog off a morning field, and slide a mug my way without a word. Black for her, 2 sugars for me. She'd noticed that first week, her piercing eyes catching the way I stirred it just so. I'd sit at the island, papers spread out, talking about my students' latest dramas while she leaned against the counter, nodding slow, like she was filing away every detail. Those eyes. Blue and steady, they saw too much. Not the flashy kind of power you read about in magazines, but something quieter, built from long nights and hard choices. Her books lined the shelves, old poetry volumes, edges worn from real reading, not show. And that laugh of hers, rare as a clear sky after rain, would echo through the penthouse during late calls, warm and unguarded, making the space feel less like a museum and more like somewhere I could stay. But I couldn't shake the letter. It arrived yesterday, slipped under the door like an old habit creeping back. From Mark, my ex-fiancé, the one who'd proposed back home, in that small town where everyone knew your business before you did. "Come back, Sarah," it read, words neat on the page. "We can pick up where we left off. Stable job waiting at the school, house with a yard, family who loves you. The city's not you, it's eating you alive." Stable. Safe. The kind of life where doors stayed closed on secrets like mine. Where being with a woman meant whispers at church, lost jobs, family turning away in those conservative circles I grew up in. Public outing terrified me. Back home, one wrong word and my teaching license could vanish. Parents pulling kids from my classes, sermons twisting my name into sin. Here, with Olivia, it felt even riskier. Her world of boardrooms and spotlights could shatter under scandal, dragging us both down. The letter was my escape hatch, a pull back to that unsatisfying past, where I hid who I was, where commitment meant settling for half a life, instead of this uncertain pull toward her. I'd been rereading it in the living room that evening, curled on the couch with the city humming below, when the door clicked open. Olivia stepped in, coat draped over her arm, hair loose from the day's meetings. She froze mid-step, eyes landing on the paper in my lap, then lifting to my face. No words, just that silence, heavy as damp earth after a storm, weighing on my chest. I folded it quick, heart thudding like boots on gravel. But she didn't move. Her gaze held, unblinking, like she'd seen straight through to the fear I carried, the one that said I wasn't ready to let go of safety for whatever this was between us. The air thickened, her presence filling the room until it pressed against my skin. Was it accusation? Hurt? Or just the quiet confirmation that I was still 1 foot out the door? She turned then, slow, hanging her coat without a sound, but the damage hung there. I felt exposed, the letter burning in my pocket like evidence of my weakness. Days passed after that in strained politeness, coffee poured with careful distance, her eyes skimming past mine at dinner, the penthouse feeling colder than the marble underfoot. Her work hours stretched longer, calls echoing late into the night, and every avoided glance widened the gap I'd created. Silence had a sound now, low and insistent, pulling me toward the confrontation I dreaded. But the silence was not static. It was corrosive. It ate away at the edges of our routine until the days blurred after that, routines grinding on like tires over cracked asphalt, mechanical and unrelenting. In those lengthening shadows of avoidance, I found myself reflecting on the quiet endurance I'd learned in small-town living. Nights spent mending fences under lantern light, where unspoken tensions between neighbors simmered like stew on a back burner, testing resolve without a single raised voice. Here, in the penthouse's sterile gleam, that same endurance wore thin, the distance between us echoing the isolation of vast fields after harvest, where the wind carried away what words couldn't bridge, leaving only the ache of what might have been if we'd dared to speak sooner. Days blurred after that, routines grinding on like tires over cracked asphalt, mechanical and unrelenting. I'd wake to the scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen, her shadow moving behind the frosted glass door. She'd set my mug down with a nod, steam curling up like mist off a river at dawn, but her fingers never lingered near mine. I'd murmur about the day's lessons, kids debating metaphors and dusty texts, and she'd listen, head tilted, but her eyes stayed fixed on her phone, scrolling through messages that pulled her away before I could finish. That letter haunted me. I'd tuck it into my desk drawer, but its words replayed in quiet moments. Mark's steady script promising the weight of familiarity. A house with creaking floors, suppers where grace was said without questions, a job where parents nodded approvingly at parent-teacher nights. My body betrayed me then, shoulders easing at the thought, a pull toward that old security like roots seeking soil. Here, in this glass tower, everything felt exposed, the city lights prying at secrets I kept buried. Wanting her meant risking it all, out in the open, where conservative eyes from home could judge, where one slip could unravel careers and families built on silence. Olivia shifted, subtle as wind changing direction. Her work hours stretched into the evening, the penthouse emptying before dusk, her heels clicking down the hall like retreating footsteps. Dinners became silent affairs. Plates passed across the island with barely a glance. I'd catch her profile in the low light, jaw set, avoiding my eyes as if meeting them would crack something fragile. Was she pulling back because she saw me as temporary? A visitor in her world who'd bolt at the first whisper of real risk? The fear gnawed, heavy in my gut. Maybe I wasn't worth the storm. Not when her empire balanced on discretion. Boardrooms humming with deals that could sour under scandal. One morning, reaching for the sugar bowl, her hand brushed mine. Skin warm, fleeting, like a spark off dry brush. She pulled away quick, fingers curling into her palm, and the air snapped taut between us. I froze, mug halfway to my lips, heat rising in my chest. That touch, innocent yet loaded, echoed the what-ifs I'd buried. What if she thought the letter meant I chose safety over this pull? What if her silence meant she'd already decided I was too scared to stay? The outing fear sharpened with every replay. Back home, truth emerging meant small-town whispers turning to shouts, church ladies clucking over coffee, family doors slamming, my classroom emptying as parents yanked their kids from the troubled teacher. Here, it could be worse. Headlines twisting her name with mine, investors fleeing her tech throne, the penthouse no longer sanctuary, but cage. I'd pace my room at night, letters' edges worn from handling, body aching for the past's dull comfort, even as my heart thudded toward her door. But the distance grew, her late nights leaving the place echoing, my bed cold with unspoken words. I replayed her gaze that first night, unreadable as distant hills, wondering if it held disappointment or just the quiet acceptance that I'd never fully let go. The routines held us together, threads fraying slow. Until one evening, over a shared meal of takeout spread on the counter, the air felt ready to break. She sat across from me, fork pausing midair, eyes finally lifting to mine. The silence thickened, pressing like storm clouds gathering, and I knew confrontation brewed, words hovering just out of reach. The takeout containers steamed between us, rice and vegetables untouched, the scent of soy hanging sharp in the air. She set her fork down, deliberate, the clink echoing off the marble like a pebble in still water. Her eyes lifted then, finally, locking on mine with that unflinching gaze. "How was your day?" she asked, voice low, careful, like testing thin ice. I swallowed, the question simple but loaded, pulling at the threads we'd let fray. Same as always, kids arguing over symbolism in poems they pretend not to care about. My words tumbled out, filling the space, but they felt thin, evasive. She nodded, slow, but her shoulders stayed tense, muscles coiling under her blouse like wire pulled taut. The silence stretched again, broken only by the distant hum of traffic far below. I couldn't hold it. The letter... It's pulling at me, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Mark's words. They promise that old steadiness. A life where things don't shift under your feet. Her expression stayed unreadable, jaw set, but her fingers tightened around her glass, knuckles whitening. She didn't speak, just watched, the weight of her silence pressing harder than any question. I shifted on the stool, the cool leather sticking to my skin. Memories flooded then, small anchors to what we'd built. The way she'd stocked the fridge with my yogurt that first month, plain Greek, no fanfare, just there one morning, like she'd noted my quiet complaint about the city brands tasting wrong. Or the evening she'd leave space on the couch, book in hand, not pushing but present, her presence a steady warmth against the chill of my doubts. Unspoken care, woven into routines, making this place feel less like borrowed space and more like soil I could root in. But layers built between us, her world clashing against mine like city steel on small-town dirt. Boardrooms with their sharp suits and sharper deals, where one wrong move toppled empires. My classroom, chalk dust and teenage rebellions, fears rooted in whispers from home, parents' narrowed eyes, boards that fired for moral lapses. Her life demanded perfection. Mine begged for hiding. Wanting her meant bridging that, exposing the gap where my past clung like burrs. The fear escalated in that moment, sharp as a thorn. Outing us could shatter everything. Her deals crumbling under tabloid glare, investors fleeing the distraction. For me, word reaching home meant family doors bolted, job offers dried up, the conservative web tightening until we separated, forced apart by stairs and severed ties. Her empire, my security, both fragile under that light. I saw it flash in her eyes, the risk mirroring my own, pulling us toward isolation. She exhaled then, slow, setting the glass down with a soft thud. "I lost trust once," she said, voice cracking the quiet like dry wood snapping. "Years back, a partner who saw my success as a ladder, not a shared path. Left when the climb got hard, took pieces of me with her." Her gaze dropped, muscles easing just a fraction, vulnerability flickering like a match in wind. Built walls after that. Thought they kept things safe. The words hung, raw, her admission a crack in the armor. I reached across, fingers brushing hers, but she didn't pull away this time. The touch lingered, warm against the cooling food, stirring the pull I'd fought. Yet doubt deepened, her story echoing my fears. Trust as a risk we both carried, heavy as unpacked baggage. I didn't knock. I retreated. The words I needed to say died in my throat, leaving a bitter taste. Night deepened after that, the city lights blurring into streaks beyond the glass. She cleared the plates, movements precise, retreating to her office with a murmured goodnight. I wandered to my room, the letter waiting in the drawer like temptation incarnate. Its edges felt rough under my fingers, Mark's promises a siren call back to safety, even as her words echoed, pulling me toward the unknown. Alone in the dark, the penthouse vast and echoing, I clutched it close, body heavy with the choice that loomed, silence wrapping around me like fog off forgotten fields. That retreat mirrored the cautious withdrawals I'd witnessed in my rural upbringing. Elders holding back from heartfelt confessions during family gatherings, letting the fire die low, rather than risk the spark of vulnerability igniting something uncontrollable. their regrets lingering like smoke in the chimney, long after the embers cooled. In the quiet of my room, that pattern weighed on me, a reminder of how fear could steal the chance for connection, leaving only the hollow echo of opportunities unspoken. The next morning came heavy, light filtering through the blinds like dust motes in an old barn. I dragged myself to the kitchen, body aching as if I'd hauled hay all night, the letter's weight settling in my bones. Olivia was already there, back to me, pouring coffee with that precise rhythm she'd mastered. I cleared my throat, aiming for casual, like chatting over fence lines back home. "Slept okay?" I asked, sliding onto the stool. She turned, mug in hand, her nod brief. "Fine." One word, clipped as wire cutters through twine. I pushed on, words spilling awkward. That letter, it's just echoes of before. Mark's world, you know? Small town, predictable. Her eyes flicked up, then away, stirring her coffee slow. "Sounds steady," she said, voice even, evasive as a deer sensing trap. My chest tightened, body feeling leaden, slumped against the counter like sodden earth after rain. Silence built between us, a barrier thick as fog rolling off the hills, pressing until I could taste it, bitter, unspoken. I wanted to bridge it, to say how his steadiness felt like chains now, but the words stuck, throat dry as cracked clay. Flash of his world hit then, unbidden. The white-clapboard house, suppers with his folks, laughter echoing safe but hollow, no space for this hidden pull toward her. Sundays in the pews, hands folded proper, my secrets buried under hymns and judgmental nods. No room for Olivia's quiet fire, for nights where touches lingered too long, hearts thudding in sync. That life was empty now, a shell I'd outgrown, yet it tugged, promising cover from the storm of wanting more. She set her mug down, movements sharp, and headed for the door. Meeting early. No goodbye, just gone, the click of the latch like a door slamming shut. I sat there, steam cooling untouched, the quiet amplifying every creak of the building. Hours later, I found the envelope on the counter. Broadway tickets, crisp and gold embossed, with a note in her neat script. "Thought you might enjoy. Client comps." No signature. The gesture landed like farewell dust, scattering what we'd built, as if she was easing me out gentle, preparing for my inevitable drift back to safety. Doubt clawed deeper, my hands shaking as I tucked them away. Was this her way of saying, "Go, find your steady"? I paced the living room that afternoon, city noise muffled beyond the glass, body heavy with the urge to push. By evening, when she returned, coat slung over her arm, I couldn't hold it. "Why the distance?" I asked, voice cracking the air as she hung it up. "Since the letter, it's like I'm fading here." She paused, back turned, shoulders stiffening. "Just busy," she said. Polite deflection, smooth as polished stone. "Work piles up." Turned then, eyes meeting mine brief, then sliding away. "You should go if it calls you." Her words hung, casual but cutting, like handing over reins to a horse bolting for home. Stakes rose sharp in my mind, visions flashing, public exposure ripping through like wildfire, word leaking back to family, their stares cold as winter wind, church whispers turning to outright shuns, doors barred with Bible verses. My job gone, kids pulled, the small town web tightening until I gasped for air. For her, worse. Headlines screaming scandal, boardrooms emptying, her empire cracking under the weight of personal distractions. We'd be separated, lives splintered by judgmental eyes, her silence now a wall I'd helped build. I pressed closer, desperate. "It's not calling, not really. But you pulling back, it makes me think you want me gone." She exhaled, rubbing her temple, evasion cracking just a hair. "I don't want to push. If safety's what you need." Trailed off, turning to the window, city lights reflecting in her eyes like distant stars. The admission stuck in my throat, raw and unfinished, body sagging under the failure. That night, thunder rolled in from the harbor, rain lashing the windows like tears held too long. The storm mirrored the churn inside, wind howling through cracks, pulling me toward her office door where light spilled faint. I knocked, heart pounding, ready for the words that might break us or bind. Rain hammered the windows like fists on a barn door, relentless, blurring the city into a smear of lights and shadow. I pushed the office door open, the knob cool under my palm, and there she was, Olivia, hunched over her desk, screens glowing blue against her face. Papers scattered like fallen leaves, her fingers paused mid-keystroke. She looked up, eyes widening just a fraction, the storm's rumble filling the space between us. "I can't do this anymore," I said, voice cutting through the downpour, raw as scraped knuckles. Stepped inside, door clicking shut behind me, the room shrinking around us. The silence, the distance. It's killing whatever this is. I'm scared, Olivia. Scared of wanting more than the safe life I know. Mark's letter, it's pulling me back to that. But it's not what I want. Not really. Wanting you feels like jumping off a ridge with no ground below. She leaned back, slow, chair creaking like old floorboards, her gaze unflinching, blue eyes steady in the dim light. The rain drummed harder, a rhythm matching the thud in my chest. "Walls," she said, voice low, gravel rough from the long day. I built them high, after betrayals that cut deep. Partners who saw dollar signs, not me. Left when the view got tough, took trust with them. Thought keeping distance kept me whole. But you've been chipping at them since day one. Her words hung, heavy as wet earth, stirring memories I'd tucked away. That night, months back, fever burning through me like summer drought, body racked on the bathroom tile. I tried to hide it, curled small in the dark. But she'd appeared, towel in hand, kneeling without a word. Her palm steady on my back, rubbing slow circles through the chills, breath warm against my neck as she pressed a cool cloth to my forehead. No questions, just presence. Her strength quiet, unyielding, like roots holding soil through flood. I'd leaned into it then, vulnerability cracking open, her touch the only anchor in the haze. Now, thunder cracked outside, shaking the glass, and I crossed to her desk, letter burning in my pocket like contraband. His return, it's not just words. If I go back, or even if word spreads here, it could out us, expose this bond we're building. Back home, conservative eyes would turn it to poison, family cutting ties, job vanishing under immoral labels. For you, headlines ripping through boardrooms, deals collapsing like dry walls in rain. The outing risk? It's a threat that could end us before we start. She rose then, rounding the desk, her hand reaching for mine, fingers clutching tight, calluses from pens and handshakes rough against my skin. The world narrowed to that grip, the room too quiet, yet brimming, rain a distant roar. Heat spread from her palm, pulling me closer, her breath mingling with mine in the charged air. I could feel her pulse, quick under the surface, mirroring the storm inside. Fear and want twisting like vines. But she pulled back, sudden, hand slipping free, stepping into shadow by the window. Her shoulders hunched, face turning to the downpour. "I can't," she whispered, voice breaking like twigs underfoot. "Afraid of ruining what we have, pushing too hard, scaring you off for good. Better to keep it fragile than shatter it." The rejection landed soft but sharp, doubt flooding back, my body sagging against the desk's edge. We stood there, silence settling thick as mud after rain, her back to me, the storm easing to a patter. No resolution, just the ache of half-spoken truths. I left then, door whispering shut, retreating to my room where the letter waited, temptation renewed. The ache of those half-spoken truths was a constant companion. Morning broke gray, light seeping through clouds like hesitant sun after frost. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, her pouring 2 mugs with careful hands, no brush of skin, but a nod across the island. Fragile truce, words minimal, her eyes meeting mine brief before dropping. Routines resumed, surface calm, but doubts lingered underfoot, roots deep and unseen, waiting for the next crack. That persistent ache settled into my days like the quiet regrets of middle age I'd observed in the lives of those back home. Farmers pausing at fence lines to reflect on paths not taken, their hands rough from years of labor, carrying the weight of decisions deferred without the luxury of youth's impatience. In our shared silences, it urged me toward clarity, a mature reckoning that the time for half measures had passed, compelling us both to confront the deeper currents pulling us together amid the uncertainties of lives fully lived. Days dragged after the storm, the fragile truce holding like frost on a wire fence, thin, ready to snap under the slightest weight. Routines ground on, coffee shared in sidelong glances, her presence a quiet shadow across the kitchen. But the doubts rooted deeper, twisting through my nights, the letter's pull warring with the ache for her touch. I couldn't keep circling it, the air between us thickening like dust before a wind that could strip everything bare. One evening, the penthouse dim with early dusk, I pulled the letter from its drawer. Its paper felt brittle now, edges frayed like old rope from too much handling. Fingers shaking, I carried it to the living room, the city a low hum beyond the glass. Olivia was there, sunk into the couch with a tablet, lines etched deep around her eyes from whatever battles her work threw up. She looked up as I approached, brow furrowing, but said nothing. Just watched as I tore the letter. Slow. Deliberate. Pieces fluttering to the coffee table, like fallen leaves in autumn wind. Hands still trembling, I crumpled the fragments, the act symbolic as burning a bridge behind me. Mark's words dissolved under my grip, safe promises reduced to nothing, my decision solidifying like dirt packing around new roots. I met her gaze then, raw and unshielded, the room shrinking to just us. "This ends it," I said, voice steady despite the quake inside. "The past. I'm choosing here. Choosing us, if that's what you want." She set the tablet aside, expression cracking open, raw as exposed earth after a plow cuts through. Stood slow, crossing to me, her steps measured like testing unstable ground. "Are you?" she asked, voice low, edged with doubt that cut deeper than accusation. "Truly choosing me, or just running from the quiet of going back?" "I saw that letter in your hand, Sarah. Thought you were already halfway out the door, escaping to some safe corner where life doesn't demand you face what scares you most." Her words landed heavy, pulling me to the couch beside her, bodies close now, knees brushing in the soft leather. The air thickened, charged with unspoken need. Her scent, clean soap and faint coffee, mingling with mine, heat rising where our arms nearly touched. I could feel the warmth of her, the subtle rise of her chest, mirroring my own quick breaths, the space between us humming like a taut wire. "I thought you were escaping," she continued, eyes searching mine, unflinching but vulnerable, blue depth swirling with fear. "To that steady life, away from this, from me. Afraid I'd never be enough to hold you here, not when safety calls louder than risk. But watching you tear that letter, it breaks something in me. Makes me wonder if you're staying for us, or just delaying the inevitable pullback." The outing stakes peaked in that closeness, visions flashing sharp, whispers of scandal leaking like floodwater through cracks. One slip, and headlines would swarm her empire, investors scattering like startled birds, boardrooms turning cold with judgment from conservative circles that prize discretion above all. For me, word racing home meant career crumbling, classroom doors slamming shut, family voices echoing with rejection, the small-town grip yanking me back into hiding. We'd lose everything. Her throne, my footing, scandal's whisper ending us before we could stand together. She leaned closer, hand finding mine, fingers lacing tight, her palm rough from endless signatures and handshakes. The touch grounded me, pulling the world into focus, her breath warm against my cheek. "I love you," she said then, voice breaking the silence like a dam giving way, raw and unfiltered. "Have for months, buried under walls I built to keep this safe. But it's not safe. It's terrifying, wanting you this much, knowing one wrong step could drag us both under. Yet here I am, saying it first, because silence isn't holding me anymore." The confession hung between us, electric, Her eyes locked on mine, vulnerability spilling like rain after drought. My heart thudded, body leaning into hers, the air alive with the promise of mutual unraveling. Fears laid bare in the quiet space we'd finally cracked open. Her words settled between us, heavy as river stones, smoothed by years of current. I leaned closer, the couch dipping under our weight, her hand still laced in mine, warm and unyielding. My breath caught, the room's quiet amplifying the thud of my heart, steady as boots on packed earth. "I love you too," I said, voice low, the admission pulling from deep, like drawing water from a well long dry. "For your resilience, the way you carry that empire without bending, even when it isolates you. Worlds apart, my chalk-dusted days and your boardroom storms, but you see me, steady, through the gaps I hide." She exhaled, slow, her free hand rising to trace my jaw, fingers rough from endless signatures, calluses grounding the touch. We navigated the fears then, words tumbling careful, like mapping a trail through unfamiliar woods. "The outing risks," I murmured, eyes holding hers. "No more hiding. We'll face them side by side. Whispers from my small-town roots, scandals nipping at your heels, conservative judgments, family doors slamming, headlines twisting our names. But together, we stand." Her nod came firm, thumb brushing my cheek, the promise sealing like fresh mortar in a stone wall. "Together," she echoed, voice gaining strength, blue eyes unflinching. "No shadows. Your past's pull, Mark's safe harbor, it's fear dressed as comfort. You represent brave truth for me, Sarah. The risk worth taking, beyond the silence we've both known." The air thickened, charged, her face inches from mine. I closed the gap, lips meeting, tentative, soft as first rain on parched ground. She hesitated, breath mingling warm, then leaned in, the kiss deepening. Certain now, tongues brushing like hidden streams converging. Hands explored boundaries, mine sliding up her back, feeling muscles tense then yield under silk. Hers cupping my neck, pulling me closer, the world narrowing to heat and rhythm. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, her walls cracking further. "Childhood scars," she whispered, body relaxing into mine, shoulders easing like a horse unhitched after a long pull. "Grew up in those rural stretches, expectations heavy as harvest loads. Family saw my ambition as rebellion, love as weakness to bury. Learned to build alone, trust as a crack in the fence. But you mend it." I held her, the penthouse shifting in my mind, no longer vast and cold, but home, walls warming with shared breath. "We'll build beyond silence," I said, vision forming clear. "This space ours, routines laced with truth. Mornings tangled in sheets, evenings trading stories without evasion. Your empire, my classroom, balanced, no more 1 foot out." She smiled, faint, dry humor flickering. "Like teaching me those lesson plans? Clumsy as a calf on ice, but earnest." Laughter bubbled low, easing the last tension, her body melting against mine, trust settling deep. Days blended after that. New routines, testing the ground we'd claimed. Coffee poured with lingering touches. Her hand on my waist as we moved through the kitchen. Steam rising like morning mist off fields. Work pulled her away, but evenings brought her back sooner. Door clicking open to my voice reading aloud from dog-eared pages. Doubts lingered faint, like echoes in a canyon, but commitment rooted, steady, pulling us forward into the unknown we'd chosen. 3 months slipped by, like seasons turning slow in the hollows back home. Routines evolving without fanfare, the penthouse settling into something lived in, worn at the edges. Mornings now meant her arm draped across my waist as sunlight cut through the blinds, pulling me from sleep with a murmur that lingered warm. We'd rise together, feet padding across cool marble. Her brewing coffee while I leaned against the counter, watching her hands move precise, no longer distant. She'd slide my mug over, fingers brushing mine deliberate now, holding just long enough to spark that quiet heat, steam rising like breath on a crisp fall morning. Those touches built the days, small anchors against the pull I'd once felt. Work still called her away. Boardrooms demanding her focus, phone humming with deals that could shift fortunes. But evenings brought her back earlier, door opening to the scent of whatever simple meal I'd thrown together, her coat shed with a sigh that eased into a smile. We'd eat at the island, knees touching under the overhang, talking about the fragments of our worlds. My students' breakthroughs over sonnets, her navigating investor storms without bending. No more evasion, just the steady rhythm of sharing, her eyes meeting mine full, unflinching. Then the rumor hit, small but sharp as a thorn through boot leather. It started with a whisper from my old hometown, carried on a call from my sister one afternoon while Olivia was out. "Heard you're shacked up with some city woman," she said, voice tight with that conservative edge, the kind honed in church basements and family suppers. "Mark's talking, saying you're lost up there. Folks are wondering about you two. Better come clean or come home before it spreads." My stomach knotted, the old fear rising like floodwater after thaw. Visions of judgmental stares at the diner, parents pulling kids from my imagined return. The small-town web tightening with Bible-backed scorn. I hung up, hands shaking, the penthouse suddenly too vast, city noise pressing in like accusations. When Olivia returned, coat still on, I told her straight, words tumbling raw. Rumors, from home, about us. Could leak wider, your world, headlines twisting it into scandal. Investors questioning your judgment in those conservative circles that fund half your deals. Her face tightened, jaw setting like fence posts driven deep. But she crossed to me, pulling me close, hands clasping mine firm, palms rough and grounding. "We face it," she said, voice low, steady as a hand on a plow rein. United. No running to shadows. We sat then, on the couch with its familiar dip, mapping it out. Calls to my family, measured statements if the press sniffed around, her PR team ready but us first, deciding together. The crisis passed quiet, a brief ripple in emails and hushed talks, but we held, fingers laced through the nights that followed, her presence a bulwark against the storm. No empire crumbled, no job vanished, just the quiet proof that outing's threat, once a monster, shrank under shared weight. Reflecting on it now, that pass with Mark feels safe, but silent. A life muffled under expectations. Suppers where grace hid the hollow ache. This love with her rings loud in quiet ways. Her laugh echoing freer over dinner. Touches that speak volumes without words. The penthouse alive with our steps. She's grown too, softer at the edges. Last week, she cleared her calendar, took a full day off for the first time in years, trading boardroom calls for a walk in Central Park. Her hand in mine under the autumn leaves. "Us over the empire today," she murmured, focus shifting to the way my breath caught at a street vendor's flowers. Her world pausing for ours. It's like those rural storms back home, thunder rolling heavy, wind stripping branches bare, only to pass, leaving clear skies, air sharp and renewed. We choose each other daily, despite the lingering fears, mine of family doors slamming shut, hers of vulnerability cracking her hard-won armor. But in the choosing, commitment roots deep, pulling us through. The evenings fade now to comfortable silence, her head on my shoulder as the city hums below. No longer a barrier, but an invitation, warm as shared breath in the dark. Morning light spilled through the terrace doors, soft and golden like dawn breaking over ridgelines back home, pulling me from sleep in her arms. Olivia stirred beside me, her body warm against mine, breath steady on my neck. No more unreadable distance in her gaze now. When her eyes opened, blue and clear, they held mine soft, unguarded, like she'd finally let the walls dissolve into dust. We lay there tangled, sheets twisted from the night's quiet explorations, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my hip. The penthouse hushed except for the distant city pulse. Eventually, we rose, padding to the kitchen where coffee brewed slow, her hand slipping to the small of my back as we moved. Over mugs steaming with that familiar scent, we talked future, voices low and deliberate, mapping paths through the uncertainties. "Careers first," she said, thumb circling mine on the counter. "Your classroom stays, my boardrooms too, but we carve space between. No more late nights pulling you under." I nodded, the balance feeling solid, like stakes driven deep in fertile ground. Public eyes loomed, potential headlines whispering threats, but we planned for it. Discreet statements ready, her team versed in deflection, my family calls scripted to ease the conservative chill without full exposure. "We'll brace together," I murmured, her nod firm. The fear no longer a lone shadow, but shared weight we could shoulder. That afternoon, alone in the study, I turned to my novel, pages filling faster now, inspired by her. The quiet intensity in her laugh, the way her resilience mirrored the women I'd known in hollows, strung under harvest moons. Words flowed of hidden loves blooming in unlikely soil, our story woven through, raw and real, turning past aches into something enduring. She'd peek in later, leaning on the frame, watching with that soft gaze. No judgment, just presence that fueled the ink. By evening, we stepped onto the terrace, city sprawling below like a vast, breathing field. Hands intertwined, her palm rough and sure in mine, the world felt steady, anchored against the winds that once threatened to uproot us. Air cool with autumn bite, we leaned on the railing, her shoulder against mine, the skyline blurring into promise. Outing fears faded in that mutual strength. Rumors quelled, family tensions eased with careful truths. No empire toppled, no classroom lost. We'd overcome the stakes, conservative judgments shrinking to echoes, our bond the quiet force holding firm. Quiet humor crept in too, light as dry leaves skittering. One weekend she attempted my lesson plans, spread across the table with furrowed brow, scribbling notes on Shakespeare in her precise hand. "This soliloquy, it's like boardroom negotiations," she said. Earnest but clumsy, mixing metaphors until we laughed. Her confusion endearing as a city woman fumbling farm chores. "You're hopeless," I teased, pulling her close, her chuckle rumbling low. The moment sealing our worlds blending, no more apart. Silence now holds promise. Her eyes saying, "We belong," woven deep in this life we've claimed. If this quiet truth resonates, share your story below. Subscribe for more tales of finding home in unexpected arms.